We're going to switch gears to our political panel. This is great fun. Let's talk about God endorsing Donald Trump. Joining me now is Ralph Reed from the Faith and Freedom Coalition, who has a direct line to the good Lord. We also have Kaylee McGhee White, journalist and senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, and the great Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor. Ralph, the reason you're so important, I know you have a direct line to the Lord. You always have, but Trump gave a speech, knocked the ball out of the park to the national religious broadcasters, their International Christian Media Convention. And I noticed Trump has the support of virtually every pastor in the state of South Carolina, Ralph Reed. So it looks like the good Lord is looking nicely at the Trump campaign.
Well, I think what you're going to see tomorrow in South Carolina, Larry, is a very impressive performance by the president among voters of faith. Self-identified, born-again evangelical Christians made up 67% of the entire primary in 2016. I think they may exceed that tomorrow. And today he's winning 70% of their votes. In the general election in 2020, he won 84% of their votes. I think he's going to be higher than that when he's the nominee in the general. And it's really not that complicated. Why, Larry? It's not all this nonsense and this anti-Christian bigotry and smear campaign of accusing people of faith of being Christian nationalists. It's simply the policies. He was the most pro-life president in American history, the most pro-Israel, the most pro-religious freedom. He suspended enforcement of the Johnson Amendment, which was put in by Lyndon Johnson in the 50s to try and silence evangelical churches. And these folks, those pastors who were in Nashville, Larry, that he addressed so eloquently last night, recommend all your viewers go and watch that speech or read the transcript. They're no different than any other voters. They're driven by policy and by issues, and particularly given this current administration, the way they've targeted parents, the way they've targeted Roman Catholics and evangelicals, they're hungering for a return to President Trump's leadership.
And I think, Kaylee, I'll go to you on this. As Ralph has eloquently put it, and I've known Ralph and his wonderful views for so many years, it's not, it's a battle against secularism. It's a battle against those who hate religion of almost any kind. I mean, in that sense, what Trump is saying is, you folks believe in God. It's hard to know how this could be a great country without belief and faith in God, God of your choosing, God of your understanding. And I think people are rallying to that during these times. Kaylee White, I let you weigh in on this, but I think it's no surprise that Trump is garnering that kind of support.
Right, not at all. And this is an important issue to me. I grew up as a pastor's daughter. My faith is still very important to me. And I'm not naive enough to believe that Trump is some great spiritual leader personally. But on a daily basis, despite his many flaws, he shows more understanding and respect for Christians and their faith than the vast majority of the left, which seems to think that any expression of faith in the public square is fascism. Indeed, they've said exactly that. And during his speech last night, one of the points that Trump made was, again, this comparison that you're talking about is that it is a choice between the faith and the secularism of the left. And he's not exaggerating when he explains the threats that Christians are now facing in this country. As Ralph touched on, these are the same people who have relentlessly attacked a Christian baker in Colorado to try and get him to violate his convictions. The same people behind an FBI memo smearing traditional Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. The same people who would love to make it impossible for Christians to adopt because of their beliefs about sex and gender. So this November, as a Christian, there really is no choice at all for me. Or if there is one, it's a very simple one.
Charlie, Declaration of Independence, our rights are derived from a natural order, from our Creator. It doesn't say our rights are derived from the democratically elected state court or school board. It says our rights come from God, and that the government's supposed to work for us. It's a fairly simple concept, but the battle now over that simple concept has been joined. It's a royal battle, Charlie. And I think Donald Trump that's why he's gotten so much support from the evangelicals, and other faith-based groups.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And of course, nobody misunderstands the whole concept of deriving our rights from God more than the modern mainstream press in America. They have no concept of it. They assume that all of our rights come from the government or elected leaders. And Ralph can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think that throughout human history, there has never been a greater force for religious liberty than the United States of America. And a lot of Americans are looking around at our country today, and they're seeing what's going on in our country today, much of it being done by elected political leaders, particularly on the Democrat Party, trying to destroy the country and trying to destroy our religious liberties. And a lot of those people look at Donald Trump and they see a guy, the only guy who has stepped forward and is willing to unabashedly, ferociously fight, die on the hill of protecting our country and saving our country, the single greatest force that has ever protected religious liberty in the course of human history. And so because of that, and of course they happen to have read the Old Testament, so they also know that the Lord works through some very strange characters, some people that you might not expect to be people that God works through, and they're very comfortable with a guy like Donald Trump, no matter how much he may or may not personally be, this pure as the driven snow.
I can tell you, just speaking personally, this is like a confessional today, but I like that. God has done for me what I could never do for myself. And you can fill in the blanks any way you want, but I've never been bashful about my private life and its ups and downs. Ralph Reed, this also is a battle against this far left woke business, infiltrating every part of our lives as the left is trying to do. And I think the faith-based community sees a champion in Trump against woke.
I don't think there's any question about it. And whether you're talking about the rights of parents to be involved in the education of their children, whether you're talking about the rights of the faith community to be involved in compassionate works without being discriminated against by government agencies, whether you're talking about the First Amendment rights of believers, this is all under assault. And there's a reason, Larry, why it's the First Amendment. It's the reason why it was the First Amendment. Because those of us who understand freedom and liberty, as our founders did, understand that liberty is indivisible. If you can restrict and harass and intimidate and silence people based on their faith, then you can also infringe on other liberties as well, including in the economy and in the marketplace.
Yes, sir.
You won't see a nation that respects religious faith that is socialist or communist in its economic policies.
Right, and it's very basis. You're exactly right. Ralph Reed, thank you. Charlie Hurd, Kaylee McGhee White. Wish we had more time.